Billy Abbott and Sally Spectra stood at a crossroads in their lives, both feeling the weight of recent events in Genoa City pressing down on them. Billy had been wrestling with the fallout of his complicated relationships, both personal and professional. His on-again, off-again relationship with Lily Winters was once again in limbo, and the pressures of the Abbott family and his career at Chancellor Winters had taken a toll on him. He was yearning for something more, something different, a way to break free from the suffocating confines of his past. Sally, on the other hand, had faced a roller coaster of emotions in recent months. Her passionate affair with Adam Newman had ended abruptly, leaving her heart bruised. She had briefly connected with Nick Newman, but that relationship was never destined for longevity. After losing her job at Newman Media, Sally was at a professional and personal standstill, unsure of what her next move should be. One evening, as fate would have it, Billy and Sally found themselves sitting next to each other at Crimson Lights. Billy, sipping on his coffee, noticed Sally staring pensively into her cup. "You look like you're miles away," Billy said, breaking the silence. Sally glanced up, startled. "Oh, Billy, didn't see you there." She gave him a half-hearted smile. "Yeah, just thinking." "About?" he prompted, raising an eyebrow. Sally sighed, looking around the cozy coffee shop. "About everything. Life, work, relationships. It feels like I've hit a wall." Billy nodded, understanding all too well. "Tell me about it. I'm starting to feel like Genoa City has become a bit too familiar, you know? Same faces, same drama. I'm ready for something different." Sally tilted her head, intrigued. "Something different? Like what?" Billy leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling for a moment. "I don't know. Maybe something outside of our usual routine. A change of scenery, a chance to shake things up. What if we—" He stopped mid-sentence, an idea suddenly forming in his mind. "What if we just left?" Sally blinked, surprised. "Left? You mean like leave Genoa City?" "Yeah," Billy said, warming to the idea. "Why not? We both need a break, don't we? I mean, think about it. No drama, no family pressure, just freedom. You've been through a lot lately, and I'm not exactly thriving myself. Maybe stepping out of our comfort zones is what we need." Sally bit her lip, considering the proposal. The thought of leaving Genoa City, even temporarily, was appealing. Where would we go? Billy grinned. Anywhere, somewhere new, somewhere where no one knows us or our baggage. What do you say? A little adventure. The more Sally thought about it, the more enticing the idea became. She had always prided herself on being a risk-taker, and this would certainly be a bold move. "Okay," she said slowly, her eyes glinting with excitement. "I'm in. Let's do it." And with that, Billy and Sally set their plan in motion, ready to embark on a journey that would take them far beyond the borders of Genoa City and into uncharted territory, both physically and emotionally. 2 days later, Billy and Sally stood at Genoa City's airport, each carrying a single suitcase. They had decided on a destination that neither of them had visited before: Lisbon, Portugal. The vibrant city promised a mix of culture, adventure, and most importantly, anonymity. As they boarded the plane, Sally looked over at Billy with a hint of nervousness in her eyes. "Are we really doing this?" Billy chuckled. "It's too late to back out now, Spectra. We're about to fly halfway across the world. You ready?" Sally smiled, shaking off the last remnants of doubt. "I was born ready. Let's do this." The flight was long, but Billy and Sally spent most of it talking, sharing stories about their childhoods, their past relationships, and their professional ambitions. Billy learned more about Sally's past in Los Angeles, including her infamous rivalry with the Forrester family and her tumultuous rise in the fashion world. Sally, in turn, got a deeper understanding of Billy's complex history with the Abbotts, his troubled past with gambling, and his struggles to find peace in his career. There was an ease to their conversation, a sense of understanding that neither had expected. For the first time in a long while, Billy felt like he wasn't being judged, and Sally felt truly seen. When they finally landed in Lisbon, the sun was just beginning to set, casting a golden glow over the city. The air was warm and smelled of salt and sea, and the streets were alive with the sounds of music and laughter. "Wow," Sally breathed, looking out at the cityscape from the cab window. "This is beautiful." Billy nodded in agreement. "It's perfect." They checked into a charming boutique hotel in the heart of the city, the room's balcony offering a breathtaking view of the Tagus River. After freshening up, they decided to explore the city, eager to immerse themselves in its vibrant energy. As they wandered through the narrow cobblestone streets, they stumbled upon a small outdoor cafe. The sound of fado music filled the air, and the smell of grilled sardines and fresh pastries wafted from nearby stalls. "This is amazing," Sally said, her eyes sparkling. "It's like a whole new world." Billy smiled, watching her light up. "It's exactly what we needed." They spent the evening eating local delicacies, sipping on Portuguese wine, and soaking in the atmosphere. For the first time in months, Billy felt a sense of peace wash over him, a reprieve from the constant chaos of his life back in Genoa City. And Sally? She felt free. Free from the judgment, the drama, and the constant pressure to prove herself. By the time they returned to the hotel, both were buzzing with excitement and a newfound sense of purpose. They had taken the first step outside their comfort zones, and already it felt like the right move. Chapter 3. An Unexpected Challenge. The next few days in Lisbon were a whirlwind of exploration and adventure. Billy and Sally took in the sights, visiting historic landmarks like the Geronimos Monastery and Belém Tower, and even took a day trip to Sintra, a fairy tale-like town with castles and palaces perched on hilltops. But as the days passed, Billy began to feel a subtle shift in the dynamic between him and Sally. What had started as a friendly escape was slowly evolving into something more. They had always had chemistry, there was no denying that, but this trip, away from the pressures of their lives in Genoa City, was allowing them to connect on a deeper level. One evening, after a particularly exhilarating day exploring the coastal cliffs of Cabo da Roca, they found themselves sitting on the balcony of their hotel room, watching the sunset. The air was warm, and the sky was painted in hues of pink and orange. Sally leaned back in her chair, a contented smile on her face. "I could get used to this." Billy nodded, glancing over at her. "Yeah, it's nice to just be, you know. No expectations, no drama. Just us." Sally looked over at him, her eyes meeting his. There was a moment of silence, a charged pause that seemed to stretch on forever. "Billy," she began, her voice soft, "do you ever think about us?" Billy's heart skipped a beat. He had been thinking about it, more than he cared to admit. "Yeah," he said, his voice low. "I do." Sally looked down at her hands, suddenly feeling vulnerable. "I don't know what's happening between us, but it feels different. Like maybe this trip was more than just an escape." Billy swallowed, feeling the weight of her words. She was right. Something had shifted between them. And it wasn't just the change of scenery. "I've been feeling it too," he admitted. "But I don't want to rush into anything. We're both coming off complicated situations. Maybe we should take things slow." Sally nodded, appreciating his honesty. "I agree. Let's just see where this goes." And so they continued their journey, navigating the uncharted waters of their evolving relationship. It was exciting and terrifying all at once, but both Billy and Sally knew they were in it together. Chapter 4. The Adventure Takes a Turn. As the days in Lisbon turned into weeks, Billy and Sally's connection deepened. They spent their days exploring new places, trying new foods, and immersing themselves in the local culture. At night, they would sit on the balcony, talking for hours about their hopes, their fears, and their dreams for the future. But as the trip continued, the outside world began to creep back in. Billy received a call from Lily, who was curious about his extended absence from Chancellor Winters. Meanwhile, Sally's phone buzzed with messages from Chloe, who was trying to coax her back into the fashion world. The realities of their lives in Genoa City were starting to encroach on their escape, and both Billy and Sally felt the weight of it. One afternoon, as they sat at a cafe overlooking the ocean, Sally voiced what had been on both of their minds. "Do you think we can really just stay here forever? At some point, we're going to have to go back." Billy sighed, staring out at the horizon. "I know, but the thought of going back to the same old routine, it's exhausting. I don't want to go back to the drama and the expectations." Sally reached across the table, placing her hand on his. "What if we don't? What if we took this trip as a sign that we need to make some real changes in our lives? Maybe this is our chance to start fresh." Billy looked at her, a spark of hope flickering in his chest. "You mean, leave Genoa City? For good?" Sally shrugged. "Maybe. Or at least, find a way to live on our own terms. We've both been trying so hard to fit into these boxes that everyone else has put us in. What if we broke free from that?" Billy's mind raced with possibilities. Could they really do it? Could they leave behind the expectations of their families, their careers, and their pasts? It was a terrifying thought, but also exhilarating. "I like the sound of that," Billy said, a smile slowly spreading across his face. "I like the sound of that a lot." And with that, Billy and Sally began to hatch a plan that would take them even further outside their comfort zones than they had ever imagined. Chapter 5: A Leap of Faith. Back in Genoa City, life continued as usual. The Newman family, the Abbotts, and the rest of the town carried on with their daily dramas, oblivious to the fact that Billy and Sally were contemplating a life-changing decision half a world away. Billy had always been a risk-taker, but this was different. This wasn't about chasing thrills or making impulsive decisions. This was about carving out a new path for himself, a path that wasn't dictated by his family name or his past mistakes. Sally, too, had spent her entire life trying to prove herself to others. But here in Lisbon, she had realized that she didn't need to prove anything to anyone. She could just be herself, and that was enough. The night before they were scheduled to fly back to Genoa City, Billy and Sally sat on their balcony, looking out at the city they had come to love. "Are we really going to do this?" Sally asked, her voice filled with both excitement and uncertainty. Billy looked at her, his heart pounding in his chest. "Yeah," he said, his voice steady. "We are." Sally smiled, her eyes shining with determination. "Then let's make a pact. No more playing by other people's rules. No more letting our pasts define us. From now on, we live on our own terms." Billy nodded, feeling a sense of liberation wash over him. "Deal." And with that, Billy and Sally took a leap of faith, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they would navigate the uncharted waters of their new lives, knowing that as long as they had each other, they could face anything. Chapter 6: Returning to Reality. When Billy and Sally returned to Genoa City, they were greeted with a mix of surprise and curiosity. Their extended absence had not gone unnoticed, and questions swirled about what exactly had happened during their time away. Lily was the first to confront Billy, her tone sharp but laced with concern. "So you just disappear for weeks without a word. What's going on, Billy?" Billy, standing in his office at Chancellor Winters, took a deep breath. "I needed some time to think, Lily, to figure out what I really want." Lily crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing. And did you figure that out? Billy hesitated for a moment, but then he nodded. Yeah, I did. I don't want to keep living the same life, making the same mistakes. I need something different, something more meaningful. Lily's expression softened, though she still looked skeptical. And where does that leave us? Billy looked at her, his heart heavy. I don't know yet, but I think it's time we both took a step back and figured out what's best for ourselves, individually. I need to focus on myself for a while. Lily nodded slowly, understanding but still hurt. Okay, I can respect that. Meanwhile, Sally faced her own set of challenges. Chloe, who had been holding down the fort at their fashion company, was eager to know what Sally's next move would be. Sally, you just vanished, Chloe exclaimed, her frustration clear. Are you still in this or not? Sally, sitting in their office, took a deep breath. I am Chloe, but things are going to be different. I need to figure out what direction I want to take with my career, and I need you to trust me while I do that. Chloe, though clearly frustrated, eventually nodded. All right, but don't leave me in the dark again, okay? Sally smiled gratefully. Deal. As the days passed, Billy and Sally slowly adjusted back to life in Geno City, though it was clear that both of them had changed. Their trip had given them a new perspective, and they were determined to live life on their own terms, no longer confined by the expectations of those around them. In the months that followed, Billy and Sally's relationship continued to evolve. They spent more time together, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. They were no longer just two people escaping their problems. They were partners, navigating the complexities of life together. Billy decided to step back from his role at Chancellor Winters, opting to focus on personal projects that brought him fulfillment rather than stress. He found joy in mentoring young entrepreneurs and investing in innovative businesses that aligned with his values. Sally, too, began to carve out a new path for herself. While she remained involved in the fashion world, she started exploring other creative ventures, including a collaboration with a local design school to mentor up-and-coming designers. Together, Billy and Sally built a life that was uniquely theirs. It wasn't perfect, and there were still challenges along the way, but they faced them head-on, with a newfound sense of purpose and determination. And through it all, they remained committed to their pact, to live life on their own terms, free from the constraints of their pasts and the expectations of others. As the sun set over Geno City one evening, Billy and Sally sat on the porch of Billy's lakeside cabin, enjoying the peacefulness of the moment. They had come a long way since their impulsive decision to leave Geno City all those months ago, and though their lives had taken unexpected twists and turns, they both felt a sense of contentment. You know, Billy said, glancing over at Sally, I never thought I'd be here, in this place. Emotionally, I mean. But I'm glad we took that leap. Sally smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. Me too. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky. Eventually, Sally broke the silence. So what's next for us, Billy Abbott? Billy grinned, his eyes sparkling with mischief. Who knows? But whatever it is, I'm ready for it. Sally laughed, feeling a sense of excitement bubble up inside her. Me too. And with that, Billy and Sally embraced the unknown, ready to face whatever new adventures life had in store for them. Together, they had stepped outside their comfort zones, and in doing so, they had discovered a world of possibilities they had never imagined. Their journey was far from over, but one thing was certain. They were in it together, and no matter what challenges came their way, they would face them side by side, ready to take on the world. Victor Newman, the patriarch of the Newman family and the kingpin of Geno City, stood in his office at Newman Enterprises, staring out at the sprawling city below. His mind was racing, Abby, his youngest daughter, was set to be married in a few short weeks. It should have been a time of celebration, but Victor felt an uneasy tension tightening in his chest. There was something he knew about the upcoming wedding, something he had discovered recently, that he couldn't bring himself to share with Abby. Not yet. He clenched his jaw as he thought about the secret he was keeping. Abby was his little girl, and despite her independence and her success, she would always be that bright-eyed child who looked up at him with trust and admiration. How could he look her in the eyes and tell her the truth, knowing it might shatter her dreams of happiness? No, Victor decided, not now. He would wait for the right moment, but the clock was ticking, and soon he would have to decide. As the door to his office creaked open, Victor turned, steeling himself. It was Nikki, his devoted wife and Abby's stepmother, with a knowing look on her face. She had sensed something was wrong. "Victor," she said softly, stepping closer to him, "you've been distant. Abby's wedding is supposed to be a joyous occasion, but I can tell something's bothering you. What is it?" Victor exhaled, running a hand through his thick gray hair. "Nikki, there's something I've found out about Abby's fiancé, and I'm not sure how to handle it. I don't want to ruin her wedding, but I can't let her walk into this blind." Nikki raised an eyebrow, her concern deepening. "What is it, Victor? If there's something wrong, Abby needs to know." Victor hesitated for a moment. He trusted Nikki more than anyone else, but even he wasn't sure how to deliver the news. "I did some digging," he began, "and it turns out that Abby's fiancé, Tyler, has a past that he's been hiding. He's not the man she thinks he is." Nikki gasped, placing a hand over her mouth. "What do you mean? What kind of past are we talking about?" Victor's expression darkened. He was involved in some shady business dealings a few years ago. Nothing illegal, but enough to raise red flags. I'd also found out he had a previous engagement that ended abruptly, and there are rumors that he was unfaithful. Abby doesn't know any of this. Nikki shook her head, her heart aching for Abby. "Victor, we can't let her marry a man who isn't being honest with her. She deserves to know the truth." Victor sighed heavily, walking over to the large portrait of his family that hung on the wall. "I know that, Nikki, but Abby's been through so much. Her last relationship ended in heartbreak, and she's finally found someone who makes her happy. I'm torn. Do I tell her the truth and risk breaking her heart again? Or do I let her have her moment, hoping that maybe Tyler has changed?" Nikki placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "Whatever you decide, we'll face it together. But we have to be careful. If we handle this the wrong way, it could backfire, and we could lose Abby's trust." Victor nodded, grateful for Nikki's support. He knew that his decision would have lasting consequences, but for now, he would keep the secret close to his chest. He would watch Tyler closely, waiting for the right time to reveal what he knew. Across town, Abby Newman was in the middle of a whirlwind of wedding preparations. Her life had been a roller coaster of emotions in the past few months, but now she was finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Her relationship with Tyler had been fast-paced, passionate, and intense. Everything she had ever dreamed of. After her heartbreak with her ex, she never thought she would find love again, but Tyler had swept her off her feet. As she sat in her living room, surrounded by wedding planners, florists, and designers, she couldn't help but smile. This was going to be her fairy tale wedding. She had chosen the perfect venue, a sprawling estate just outside of Genoa City, and every detail was falling into place. Her wedding gown, an exquisite custom creation, was being tailored to perfection. The flowers were being flown in from Europe, and the guest list was filled with the who's who of Genoa City. Yet, despite all the excitement, there was a small, nagging doubt in the back of Abby's mind. Tyler had been acting strange lately, distant, preoccupied. He had always been attentive and loving, but in the past few weeks, He seemed distracted. Abby tried to push the feeling aside, chalking it up to pre-wedding jitters, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. As Abby's phone buzzed with a text message, she glanced at the screen. It was from Tyler. "Can we talk tonight? There's something I need to tell you." What could he possibly need to tell her just weeks before the wedding? Was this about their future? Was he getting cold feet? Abby's mind raced as she responded, her fingers trembling slightly. "Of course. Let's meet at the house tonight." She put the phone down and tried to focus on the task at hand, but the feeling of unease lingered. She glanced at the wedding planner, who was discussing floral arrangements with the florist, and took a deep breath. Everything was going to be fine. It had to be. That evening, Tyler arrived at Abby's house, his expression serious and his body language tense. Abby could feel the weight of the moment as he walked through the door. Something was definitely wrong, and she braced herself for whatever was coming. "Tyler, what's going on?" Abby asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Tyler ran a hand through his hair and sighed deeply. "Abby, there's something I need to tell you. I've been keeping a part of my past hidden from you, and I can't move forward with this wedding unless you know the truth." Abby's heart pounded in her chest. "What are you talking about? What kind of past?" Tyler took a deep breath. "Before I met you, I was engaged to someone else. Her name was Rachel. We were together for a few years, and we were supposed to get married, but I'd messed up. I was unfaithful to her, and the engagement ended. I regret it every day, and I've worked hard to become a better man since then, but I should have told you about it from the beginning." Abby stared at him, her mind reeling. Tyler had been engaged before? He had cheated? She felt like the ground was slipping out from under her. "Why didn't you tell me this earlier, Tyler? Why did you wait until now?" Tyler's eyes were filled with remorse. "I was scared, Abby. I didn't want to lose you. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I didn't want my past mistakes to ruin what we have." Abby felt tears welling up in her eyes. She had been through so much heartbreak in the past, and now she was faced with another painful revelation. She loved Tyler, but could she trust him? Could she marry a man who had hidden such a big part of his past from her? "I need time to think," Abby whispered, her voice barely audible. "I don't know what to do." Tyler nodded, his face etched with pain. "Take all the time you need. I just hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me." As Tyler left, Abby collapsed onto the couch, her mind racing. She had dreamed of this wedding, of a future with Tyler, but now everything felt uncertain. Could she really marry him knowing what she now knew? Or was this a sign that her instincts had been right all along? Something wasn't right. Meanwhile, Victor had not been idle. His private investigation into Tyler's background had uncovered even more unsettling details. It wasn't just the broken engagement or the infidelity that concerned him. There were whispers of financial troubles, business deals gone wrong, and associates from Tyler's past who weren't exactly reputable. Victor's gut told him that Tyler wasn't the man Abby believed him to be, and he couldn't stand by and let his daughter make a mistake that could ruin her life. But how could he tell Abby the truth without breaking her heart? He had already caused so much pain in his children's lives over the years. He had pushed them too hard, demanded too much. Could he really risk losing Abby by revealing what he had found? Victor sat behind his desk, deep in thought, when Nikki entered the room once again. "Victor, you have to tell her," Nikki said softly. "She deserves to know the truth before it's too late." Victor clenched his jaw, the weight of the decision heavy on his shoulders. "I know, Nikki. I don't want to see her hurt again." Nikki walked over to him and placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "She's strong, Victor. She's been through so much, and she'll get through this too. But she needs to know who she's marrying. You can't keep this from her." Victor nodded slowly, knowing that Nikki was right. He couldn't protect Abby from the truth any longer. It was time to confront Tyler and lay everything on the table. The next morning, Victor called Tyler to his office. Tyler, sensing that something was wrong, arrived with a nervous energy. He knew that Victor had always been protective of Abby, but he hadn't expected to be summoned for a private meeting so close to the wedding. "Mr. Newman," Tyler greeted, trying to maintain a confident demeanor. Victor gestured for him to sit down. His eyes were sharp, his expression unreadable. "Tyler, there's something we need to discuss," Victor began, his voice steady but firm. "I've done some digging into your past, and I know about your previous engagement." I know about the infidelity, but he didn't flinch. "I've already told Abby about that. I came clean last night." Victor raised an eyebrow, impressed by Tyler's boldness. "Is that so? Then I assume you've also told her about your financial troubles and the business deals you've been involved in." Tyler's eyes widened, and Victor knew he had struck a nerve. There were some issues in the past, but I've moved on from that. I'm not that person anymore." Victor leaned forward, his voice low and dangerous. "You may have moved on, but the people you were involved with haven't. They're still out there. And if you think I'm going to let my daughter marry a man who could bring trouble to her doorstep, you're sorely mistaken." Tyler swallowed hard, his confidence crumbling under Victor's intense gaze. He had known that marrying into the Newman family wouldn't be easy, but he hadn't anticipated just how far Victor would go to protect his daughter. "Mr. Newman, I love Abby," Tyler said, his voice shaking slightly. "I would never do anything to hurt her. I've made mistakes, but I've learned from them. I'm a different man now." Victor studied him for a long moment before speaking. "You may love her, Tyler, but love isn't enough. You need to be honest with her and with yourself. If you truly care about Abby, you'll walk away from this marriage before it's too late." Tyler's heart sank. He knew that Victor had the power to ruin his life, to expose every skeleton in his closet. But he also knew that he couldn't walk away from Abby. She was everything to him, and he couldn't imagine a future without her. "I won't walk away," Tyler said firmly. "I love Abby, and I'm going to marry her." Victor's expression hardened. "Then you'd better be prepared for what comes next, because if you hurt my daughter, there will be consequences." As the wedding day approached, Abby found herself torn between her love for Tyler and the doubts that had been planted in her mind. She had forgiven him for his past mistakes, but Victor's warning weighed heavily on her heart. She knew her father well enough to know that he wouldn't oppose her marriage unless he truly believed Tyler was a threat. But Abby also knew that she couldn't let fear dictate her future. She loved Tyler, and she believed that he had changed. She wanted to believe in their love, in the life they had planned together. On the morning of the wedding, as she stood in her bridal suite, Abby looked at her reflection in the mirror. Her wedding gown was perfect, her hair and makeup flawless, but there was a sadness in her eyes. This should have been the happiest day of her life, but all she felt was uncertainty. As she prepared to walk down the aisle, her phone buzzed with a message from Tyler. "Meet me outside. We need to talk." Abby's heart raced as she slipped out of the suite and made her way to the garden. Tyler was waiting for her, looking as handsome as ever in his tuxedo, but there was a heaviness in his expression that matched her own. "Abby," Tyler began, his voice thick with emotion. "I can't do this." Abby's heart sank. "What do you mean?" Tyler took a deep breath, his eyes filled with regret. "I love you more than anything, but I can't marry you knowing that I haven't been completely honest with you. There are things about my past that I haven't told you, things that could come back to haunt us. I don't want to hurt you, Abby. I want to protect you." Tears welled up in Abby's eyes as she listened to Tyler's confession. She had known that something was wrong, but hearing it from him now, on their wedding day, was almost too much to bear. "I don't care about your past," Abby said, her voice shaking. "I love you, Tyler. We can get through anything together." Tyler shook his head, his face filled with pain. "You deserve better than that, Abby. You deserve someone who can give you the life you've always dreamed of. I don't want to be the one to ruin that." Abby felt her heart breaking as she realized what Tyler was saying. He was walking away, not because he didn't love her, but because he believed it was the right thing to do. And in that moment, she knew she had to let him go. "I'd love you, Tyler," Abby whispered, tears streaming down her face. "But if this is what you think is best," Tyler pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly as they both cried. It was the hardest decision either of them had ever made, but they knew it was the right one. As Tyler walked away, leaving Abby standing alone in the garden, she wiped away her tears and took a deep breath. She was heartbroken, but she was also strong. She had survived heartbreak before, and she would survive this. Victor had been right all along. The wedding may have been called off, but Abby knew that her father had only been trying to protect her. And in the end, she was grateful for that. Chapter 7. Moving Forward. In the days that followed, Abby leaned on her family and friends for support. The wedding had been canceled, but life in Genoa City moved on. Abby threw herself into her work at society, determined to keep moving forward despite the pain. Victor, though relieved that Abby hadn't gone through with the wedding, couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. He had kept the truth from her for too long, and he wondered if things could have turned out differently if he had been more honest from the start. But as Abby slowly began to heal, Victor realized that she was stronger than he had ever given her credit for. She had faced the truth head on, and though it had been painful, she had come out the other side